Yes, very good, guys. Astromaniac again here at the University Astronomical Association. I'm going to try or I'm going to use this telescope again, this 10 in 25 centimeter diameter mid-f4. Tonight I'm going to try to photograph an object that is quite well known, quite intriguing, let's say, because it's not one of the most popular, let's say.
Okay.
That you have photos that people commonly know, especially planetary nebula, is that of the Lyre, that of Dumble, that of the Helix. This is not one of the best known, but it is well known, and it is a somewhat mysterious object, at least to me. I have never photographed it. Well, I have photographed it. I tried once from my house. I think I have a video on the channel from some time ago with a terrible sky. This nebula has a fairly low surface brightness, and I had virtually nothing. It's barely visible, but let's say this is going to be the first serious attempt at a darker sky with greater magnification, etc. With 1F4 is the Cat's Eye Nebula, a planetary nebula in the constellation of the Dragon. Then everything is ready, just wait for it to come out at night. We need to connect the cameras, computers and so on, but hey, I'm not going to do it until I go out at night. I don't like leaving it here. During the day, and that's it, well, it's simple. And the heavy part, let's say that clarity is needed so that this does not weigh a lot. It is a risk of falling. It is very heavy.
So now
that everything is installed, only the electrical connections remain, etc. Let's see, then how about this object that I repeat? For me, it is one of the most intriguing in heaven.
Well, let's see what this nebula would look like in this optical combination. Telescope camera in the nebula is K in the constellation of the Dragon Cat's Eye Nebula. So let's see how it would be framed with this camera ACI 183 monochrome, and the one I have to configure here on the star is the HEE 183 monochromatic, since that was the one I initially had. Now I have one of the ZWO, but the sensor is exactly the same, so the dimensions are the same, and the telescope can be MIT LXT55, which has a focal length of 1 mate, so a pretty large telescope. Yes, we think about deep sky, not everything as you see. Well, the doubtful one is very small, very small and quite atopic, especially this most extensive part. The center is pretty bright, but it's much smaller, so it would be framed like this. Let's see, then let's start taking pictures and see how it goes. Well, I finally took almost 2 hours of exposure, about 2 hours adding up the hydrogen filters, alpha suffers 2 and oxygen 3, adding up the 3, well, almost 2 hours of exposure. Let's see here, hydrogen alpha, 59 images, each of 1 minute. It would be 59 minutes, almost 1 hour, because the first house was one that I took from. Of 4 minutes, but the self-dation did not convince me, so I decided to give it just 1 minute 60 seconds, so that would be 59 minutes. Alpha hydrogens, let's open one of the images to see how it goes. Is it just a 1 minute picture? Of course, not too many details. The center, the overexposed center, because is the brightest part. The nebula is practically invisible. Now let's see, then sulfur 2 were a total of 38 images. Remember, each image is 1 minute long, so it would be 38 minutes, and we would already be in 137 hours. (137H), let's see one of the images. Here it is. It is not seen, let's say, the nebulous cup effect, simply the center, the core, which is the brightest, and then we are going to see oxygen 3. Same about the position. The center here is a small detail, but the nebula that has enough signal in oxygen 3 is practically barely hinted at, as it is quite common in planetary nebulae, and since 20 were 20 tested in total. If I remember correctly, that is 20 would be a total of 2 hours. 57 minutes, I repeat, 1 hour, 57 minutes, almost 2 hours. So I'm going to process it. I stack the images. I remove the gradient and noise in Cracksper, this very useful program. Then I'm going to process it in Photoshop to see how the result is. Well, here is the result really with a lot of noise, especially one of the factors. The thing is that I didn't do the flats. He couldn't do the flats, and then I finished these stains. Here I couldn't remove them. I did a little Photoshop to try to get them off her, but it was very difficult because I had to take them to the extreme, the levels, the curves, the contrasts, etc. Several things. I had to take them to the extremes so you could see something. Not here, at least you can see the nebula, as you saw in the images and nulls, you could see practically nothing. So I had to work this to the extreme to at least bring some details, and of course I had no choice but to increase the noise, and then by taking all this to the extremes it was also difficult for me to eliminate this. Here they are, but hey, it's a first attempt, a quite difficult nebula. It's a challenge really. And 2 hours. It's not really enough, but hey, at least it's my first picture of this Cat's Eye Nebula in the Dragon, so maybe I'm not super happy, but at least I can say that I'm pleased to have my first picture of the Cat's Eye Nebula. Now let's see the center. The center here, as you see, it's overexposed then. I also focused on working on the center. Of course, it is very small in this, even with this telescope that has a focal length of 1 meter, it is still not enough to increase the center a lot, but I wanted to do a work focused on the center. Let's see how it goes. Well, here is the center of the fog. As you can see, you can't see anything else. I didn't have to work hard on it. sacrifice the center of the nebula to the stars. Maybe I was thinking about making a combination, not getting between the other image and this one, but so that you could see not the EL, the main part of the nebula, let's say, and the center, but it's not worth it. I'm going to have decided to take it again with longer exposure time, with flat, etc. Of this nebula is not worth trying because the other image has too much fluid. So, of course, here very small, we are going to enlarge it because it is barely, but at least you can see those who know this image of the center of the nebula, since they are familiar with this shape. Of course, quite elementary here, quite low resolution, because it's this camera doesn't have a low resolution, let's say. The 20 megapixels, but it's just a detail. It's in the center of the image. No, so I couldn't do much more. I think I got more out of it than I could really do from the center. We are going to buy here. As you can see, it is a detail just in the center. Let's go back there. This center happened here. I simply worked on it in a way that I wasn't interested in the entire periphery, the stars, etc. Simply this center here then. Well, it is very small here. But I repeat, I am satisfied to have achieved this in less than 2 hours. And in this case, well, the flats don't have that much influence on a small detail. The flats influence, but so does the short exposure time. And in this case, of course, also the focal length is only 1 millipede, which for other types of photography is considerable for this small nebula. The core, let's say this nebula, well, it's not enough. Well, that's all I say. I'm not perhaps happy, but I'm satisfied to have photographed the nebula for the first time. Cat's eye, or for the first time, let's say, with a certain quality, although not minimal, but hey, that some details can be seen, and having managed to photograph the center with, even if it is with such a low, let's say, resolution, not so small. But the first try, I'm not completely dissolved. I'm going to try again. With much more exposure time, and I'm going to share it with you. I repeat, that's it. Thank you very much to those who have been here, and until the next video in Astromania.